Hello, my name is Richard Nathan. I'm the Superintendent of Lindenhurst Public Schools, and today I'd just like to talk a little bit about the possible closing of E.W. Bauer Elementary School. First, I'd like to talk about some of the financial realities. For next school year, 2011-12, we expect the teacher retirement system contributions to increase by approximately 11%, translates to $1.5 million. We expect health contributions in terms of what the district has to pay to increase by about 14.5%, which comes out specifically to be $1.6 million. So 1.5 extra in TRS, 1.6 million in health benefits, and we're losing the $1.9 million that we got this year and last year for ARRA money. That would be the federal stimulus money. So when you look at it, you add the two together and you take the loss of revenue, that's a $5 million spread, money that we need to make up. In addition, future Governor Cuomo was talking a lot about a tax cap. If there was a 2% tax cap, which is the number that he's quoting, it would have been last year, for this year's budget, a loss of $1.5 million that we would have had to take out of our expenditures. So as you can see, the financial situation looks very grim, and so at this point, we believe this is the time to consider closing an elementary school. What the Board of Ed did was last year they commissioned from Western Suffolk BOCES a demographic study. The study showed that between 1999 and now, 2010, the district has lost over 900 elementary students. At this point, we believe that the population has stabilized, as the demographic study shows, and the major drops have already happened. The study was redone in July just to make sure if there were any anomalies and so forth, that those were looked at. We looked at different alternatives. One of them, of course, is why do anything? Let's just leave things alone. Obviously, if we did that, we still would have all of the extra expenditures and the loss of the ARA funds, plus possibly the tax cap, and more programs would have to go, more teachers would have to be accessed, athletics, other things. Now, I'm not saying that we won't have to do some of those things, because we have many other things to make up for, a lot more money to make up for, but the reality is, if we just leave things alone, there's an extra $1.5 million we have to find in our budget somehow. Some of the options that were considered also involved possibility of opening a kindergarten center, as well as closing a school and moving students all around the district so that one school would be a kindergarten center. Another possibility would be, again, to close an elementary school, and 3 of our schools would become grades K1 and 2, the other 3 would become 3, 4, 5. But the Board of Ed and I both feel that both of those options would be extremely disruptive. We feel that the possibility of simply closing a school, and in particular E.W. Bauer Elementary School, is the only feasible option of all of these options. Why Bauer? Well, first of all, the class sizes are small. The number of students, that is, there's 229 regular education students in the building right now. The number is going to pretty much remain the same, possibly even get lower. It's supposed to decrease in 2019 to something like 211 students. The 229 regular ed students could be split between Westgates and Harding, and that's what our plan is. We would be using Broadway as the boundary, and students who live west of Broadway would go to Westgates. Students who live east of Broadway would go to Harding Avenue. Harding Avenue and Westgates are in pretty close proximity to Bauer. Westgates is under a mile, 0.92 miles from Bauer, and Harding is 1.29. So it's very centrally located in terms of the way students would be split. We also looked at the capacities of both Westgates and Harding, each of them and we took the current population and we found that where they would be going according to where they lived, and we found that we would have next year 18 classes at 18 classes at Westgates, which would give us still room. There'd still be 4 available full-size classrooms which means that the art and music programs would not suffer. They would still have their regular classrooms. Harding Avenue would be using 16 of their 20 full-size classrooms. So there again, we also decided that one of those 16 classrooms would be the self-contained 5th grade, which we've been phasing out and bringing over to Allegheny. Right now, the Bauer capacity is 57%. It's going down to 48%. So using half a building doesn't make any sense. There are several sections that are singleton sections right now, sections where there's only one class on a grade level. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the students on that grade level at Bauer are the same students for 6 years in the class. It's kind of like the little red schoolhouse, where you see only the same faces. You don't have a chance to mingle with other students. It's not the real world. In addition, teachers don't have a chance to collaborate with other teachers. The building itself is in a location that's right on Montauk Highway. It's not particularly safe, being right there with this very wide highway. It's surrounded by two narrow one-way streets. Parking is terrible. Even parking within the parking lot is not very feasible. The building is old. It's about 58 years old, and it needs approximately $2.2 million to remain in what we call a state of good repair. It doesn't mean that it's unsafe or anything like that, because those things must be fixed right away. But things like windows, shades, other things, many cosmetic things are taken into account, and the building is aging. So it makes a lot of sense based upon location, based upon low enrollment, and based upon the fact that we have singleton sections to choose Bauer. It's also centrally located, so it is between the two schools that we would be sending our students. It's a very clean split. We also have made a commitment that none of our kindergarten or first grade classes would exceed 26 students, and our classes in grades 2, 3, 4, and 5 would never exceed 28. Which is the par for the course. This is what it is in the rest of the district. Some of our largest schools already have classes of 26, 27, and 28. The savings itself, we added up the savings for teachers, for clericals, for administrators, for aides, fuel costs, and so forth. It total out to be $1.5 billion annually. That translates to a 2% savings in the tax levy. Now, I'm not saying that we won't raise the tax levy. I'm not saying that we won't have to find other sources, because with all these extra expenditures, we're going to have to do additional cuts. But this takes care of a chunk of the extra expenditures we're going to have next year. A lot of attention has been paid to what will happen to the Bauer facility. Well, the options are to leave it empty, to lease it, or to rent it. Lease or rent or sell it. Selling requires approval of the community. Would require us to have a budget. Part of the budget vote would also be the possible sale of the building. We'd have to identify who the purchaser is and so forth. To be very honest with you, in these times, I don't believe that's the direction that the board is going to go in right now, because first of all, we're not going to get top dollar. I believe the board would prefer, and I don't want to speak for them, but I certainly would recommend at least looking for an organization to lease the building. And that doesn't mean that we won't have use of the fields or we won't have use of the gymnasium. In addition, if we leave the building empty, the cost factor would be about $50,000. If we use the gyms and use the fields and so forth, as we hope to do it, that cost would probably double. Some people have said, well, what about the additional cost of busing? We believe that, first of all, Bowers has 2 buses which would be redeployed. In addition, some of the buses to Westgates and Harding right now don't have a lot of students. So if at most, it might be 1 additional bus, which would be a cost of $70,000. We want to do this now because we want to plan for transition. We want to do things to make both the staff, parents, and students, in fact, all of those groups comfortable. And this is my recommendation. I think we're doing the right thing. I know it's an emotional issue. There are many people who are upset. We will do everything we can to make people feel better about it. We'll do a lot of planning and involve the community in the planning.